So I titled this as a long journey. And if you notice the slide here, today is on the biblical calendar, 16th day of the second month. And tomorrow will be the 17th day. Actually, tonight is the 17th, beginning of the 17th day in the evening. And the year is supposed to be a 6,000th year, according to TorahCalendar.com and some other people, but we'll go over that a little bit more in detail. So I always forget to do this, so I decided to do it in the beginning of my talk, and I am going to give some credit where credit is due. So some of these materials are from God's Roadmap to the End. You will find that on YouTube channel. And Dr. Chuck Missler, who is a very famous Bible teacher, who passed away a few years ago, but he left a treasure trove of amazing teachings. Mr. Ken Potter, Brother Ken Potter, who also is a fellow watchman. He has some videos that are very, very amazing stuff on YouTube channel, as with Dr. Barry R. Regarding the end times. And TorahCalendar.com, I use it to look up some key Hebrew dates, and it's a good website. It is not completely right on, so sometimes I use it as a reference, and I have my own biblical calendar that I made, which is very close to TorahCalendar.com, but there are sometimes a little bit off too. And then there's a new site that I saw recently, 2028n.com. I will share a slide from them later. And then Professor Tolhurst wrote an article back in April of 1988. He's I think he's a professor at a Seventh-day Adventist seminary, and he wrote an article about Artaxerxes' decree that he made in 457 BC, and so I enjoyed his article, and validates the dating that I'm about to share with you. So I shared this slide with you in the past, my previous teaching about these four living creatures, Jewish rabbinical teaching or method that I've encouraged everyone to use to be able to interpret scripture in a deeper fashion. And so we have these terms, Peshat, represented by the ox, and which is a literal meaning of the word when you read the word, and Remains, represented by man. So a little deeper interpretation, a hint, if you will, of the text that you're reading in the word. Drash is yet another level of deeper meaning, represented by the lion, where you can teach others through this, a revelation that you get. And then the final Sod, represented by the eagle, where hidden things come out. God reveals hidden things to you. And these are all these animals, or these symbolism, are the four living creatures around God's throne, and it speaks to who Jesus is actually. And so ox represents the foreshadowing of coming Messiah. In the Old Testament, if you remember, they sacrificed the bulls and the lamb, and it foreshadowed Jesus's crucifixion, right? So and then the man is when Jesus actually came, he called himself many times as Son of Man, because he was incarnated into humanity. And then when he comes the second time, he'll be coming as Lion of Judah. Um, and then when at the very end, he will judge the entire world with eagle's eye, with revealing all the secrets that have been hidden. So indeed, the justice, the injustice that we will see in our world today will all be corrected by our Lord. So today's teaching mainly is deriving from Proverbs 7. And Proverbs 7, I won't read the whole text, but I'll just read the key two verses. Verse 19 says, "For the good man is not at home. He is gone on a long journey." And that's what our talk is about, this long journey. In verse 20, he had taken a bag of money with him and will come home at the day appointed. So that's the second point I want to talk to you guys about, the long journey that he's gone on, and when he will return on the day appointed, the appointed time that he will return at. So the context of this chapter, Proverbs chapter 7, is that there's an adulterous woman that's trying to tempt this young man to be with her, and so she's telling him, my husband is gone away on a long journey, and he's gonna come back at some appointed time, so he'll be gone for a while, and so why don't you be with me and all that. And so Proverbs 7, on a literal sense, is about teaching young guys, young men, to not engage in immoral activities and such. And so, but on a little deeper level, in the lion and the eagle level, there's a deeper meaning behind this as it relates to the end times, because this husband represents Jesus, who went on a long journey after his ascension into heaven. He's been sitting at the right hand of God. He's been gone for almost 2,000 years, and he is about to return. And that time has come, and this appointed time, I will show you, is very, very close. So let's talk about this long journey. Proverbs 7 talked about a long journey, but there's a lot of other verses in the Bible where Jesus himself says that he's going on a long journey. Of course, he was giving a parable, but it was about himself. And Matthew chapter 25, he talks about this. This is only, I would say, about 2 days after the Palm Sunday, when he entered into Jerusalem, where 4 days later he gets crucified. So this is right before the crucifixion, right before he knows he's going to be gone. He tells everybody that he's going on a long journey by telling the parable of the talents. And he told several parables, but one of them was the talent. In verse 14 and 15, he said, "For the kingdom of heaven is as a man traveling into a far country, who called his own servants and delivered unto them his goods. And unto one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, to every man according to his several ability. And straightway took his journey." And in verse 19 he says, "After a long time, the Lord of those servants cometh and reckoneth with them." So you guys are, this is pretty famous a passage that most Christians know about how this man gave his servants 5, 2, and 1 talent, and the one with 5 and 2, they invested, and they doubled their talent, whereas the one with the 1 didn't. And when when the Lord came back from the long journey, then he was punished. And so this is exactly what is about to occur. And then in the parallel passage in book of Mark, Gospel of Mark 13:34, he says the same thing. For the Son of Man is as a man taking a far journey, who left his house and gave authority to his servants and to every man his work, and commanded the porter to watch. So, so he keeps referring to this far journey, on a long journey. Remember that word, because it'll all tie in. So there is another passage in the Old Testament that talks about the long journey, which is very, very uh, uh, odd how this is mentioned. And in Book of Numbers, chapter 9, where it's talking about celebrating keeping the Passover, there's a man that cannot celebrate it because he touched a dead man, and he's ceremonially unclean. So he was asking Moses, I can't participate in the Passover. What am I supposed to do? Because they literally believe that, keeping these feasts were path to their salvation. So they asked Moses. So I'll read the verse here, verse 6-8. And there were certain men who were defiled by the dead body of a man, that they could not keep the Passover on that day. And they came before Moses and before Aaron on that day. And those men said unto him, we are defiled by the dead body of a man. Wherefore are we kept back, that we may not offer an offering of the Lord in his appointed season among the children of Israel? And Moses said unto them, stand still, and I will hear what the Lord will command concerning you. So Moses tells him, let me ask the Lord what he wants to do with you guys, since you can't do this. And then the next verse is very interesting, verse 9-11. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, speak unto the children of Israel, saying, if any man of you or of your posterity shall be unclean by reason of a dead body, or be in a journey far off, yet he shall keep the Passover unto the Lord. The 14th day of the second month at even or evening, they shall keep it and eat it with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. So the Lord responds to Moses by telling him, okay, if they touch the dead body, it's okay. They're gonna have to celebrate a month later, exactly a month later, because if you remember, the Passover is celebrated the 14th day of the first month in the evening. So by the way, the evening of the Passover is when Jesus instituted the Last Supper, right? He was having the Seder meal with his disciples. And then that's what it's talking about, the unleavened bread and the bitter herbs. And he instituted the Last Supper for us. And so God tells him, if you touch a dead body, you could still celebrate it a month later, okay, when you're clean. But it's very interesting though. These guys came with the problem of being unclean due to a dead body, but then God tells Moses, well, there's another scenario where you can celebrate it a month later or be in a journey far off. So God is telling Moses, okay, you came with the reason of this problem of a dead body being unclean ceremonially, but I'm going to tell you there's a second scenario where you can celebrate it on the second month, the 14th day of the second month. And that is a case when somebody is in a journey far off, like they went on a long journey, they're not able to return in time, and they can if they miss it, they can celebrate it on the second month, the 14th of the second month. So so the Lord gives Moses this a second scenario that Moses wasn't even asking. So why did he mention that all of a sudden, right? It's very peculiar. And he associates this long journey with the 14th day of the second month. So there's another passage in the Old Testament where this was done actually, in Hezekiah's time, the one of the kings of Judah. He inherited a kingdom from his dad where they were involved in a lot of idol worship, and so the temple was desecrated, and they did not celebrate Passover for many years. In fact, the temple had a lot of these idols, and the priests were not clean ceremonially. Nobody was really keeping the law, and so when Hezekiah took over, he had he didn't have a system. He didn't have priests to conduct Passover. So he instituted a lot of reforms and called on the Jews, or at least the kingdom of the citizens of Kingdom of Judah, and not only that, his neighbors, the northern kingdom of Israel, to come back to Jerusalem to celebrate the Passover. But when he was about to do it, they didn't have enough, when the Passover time came, they didn't have enough priests, and the people were not coming to celebrate it. So he made a decree to delay a month, just like the Lord told Moses to do in case there's a scenario where there's a long journey. And so in a sense, the nation Israel at that time went on a long journey away from God, and when they came, they were not able to do it on time. So Hezekiah institutes this decree in Second Chronicles chapter 30. He talks about this. For the king Hezekiah had taken counsel, and his princes and all the congregation of Jerusalem, to keep the Passover in the second month, for they could not keep it at that time, because the priests had not sanctified themselves sufficiently, neither had the people gathered themselves together to Jerusalem. It continues in verse 5 and 6. So they established a decree to make proclamation throughout all Israel. So not just Kingdom of Judah, where Hezekiah was king at, but his neighboring northern kingdom, Beersheba, even to Dan, that they should come to keep the Passover unto the Lord God of Israel at Jerusalem. For they had not done it of a long time in such sort as it was written. So the post went with the letters from the king and his princes throughout all Israel and Judah, and according to the commandment of the king, saying, Ye children of Israel, turn again unto the Lord God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, and he will return to the remnant of you that are escaped out of the hand of the kings of Assyria. So at that time, the kingdom of Judah was there were the United Kingdom of Israel was divided, right? And so we had southern kingdoms, Kingdom of Judah, and northern kingdom, Kingdom of Israel. It was called Israel. Kingdom of Israel was actually the northern kingdom, excluding Judah and Benjamin, right? And so they were worshiping their own way, and they were being attacked by Assyria. So they eventually went into, a little bit later after Hezekiah, they went into Assyrian exile. So the northern kingdom went into exile, and southern kingdom went into Babylonian exile years down the line after Hezekiah, when Nebuchadnezzar attacked. But this was way before that, and so Hezekiah tells his brothers in the north, "Hey, come down. We're gonna reinstitute the Passover, but we're gonna do this on the second month, and the God's going to help you escape from the hand of Assyria, and your remnant will be escaped. And I believe this escaping and the remnant refers to perhaps the rapture. In verse 8, now be ye not stiff-necked as your fathers were, but yield yourself unto the Lord and enter into his sanctuary, which he has sanctified forever, and serve the Lord your God, that the fierceness of his wrath may turn away from you. So by celebrating the second Passover, you're going to escape. The remnant will return to God and escape and enter into his sanctuary. So the post passed from city to city through the country of Ephraim, Manasseh, even unto Zebulun. But they laughed at them to scorn and mock them. So instead of listening, they were actually mocking them because they had their own way of worshiping God and they didn't listen. And so it continues. Then they killed the Passover on the 14th day of the second month, and the priests and Levites were ashamed and sanctified themselves because they haven't been doing it for a long time. And so they felt ashamed and they returned to the Lord at the decree of Hezekiah and brought in the burnt offerings into the house of the Lord. For a multitude of the people, even many of Ephraim and Manasseh, Issachar and Zebulun had not cleansed themselves, yet did they eat the Passover otherwise than it was written. So some of the brothers from the north came down. Not all of them were mocking them, but Hezekiah prayed for them, saying, the good Lord pardon everyone that prepareth his heart to seek God, the Lord God of his fathers, though he be not cleansed according to the purification of the sanctuary. So even in the Old Testament, God has mercy on people who are not strictly following the law, as long as they're following him in their heart, because God looks at the heart, and he did this even in the Old Testament. And in verse 25 and 26, and all the congregation of Judah, with the priests and the Levites and all the congregation that came out of Israel, and the strangers that came out of the land of Israel, meaning the Gentiles. So everybody, regardless of your nationality or ethnicity, that dwelt in Judah rejoiced. They all rejoiced together. And so there was great joy in Jerusalem. For since the time of Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel, there was not the like in Jerusalem. So this story, the reason why I'm going over this is because it really ties into the timing of what is about to occur here. And in the original, the scripture that I just went over in book of Proverbs 7 about this adulterous woman tempting the young man, when it says day appointed, usually when in the Old Testament, when it talks about the day appointed, it's talking about this Hebrew word moedim, which represents the seven feasts of Israel, or seven feasts of the Lord: the Passover, unleavened bread, first fruits, Pentecost, trumpets, Day of Atonement, and tabernacles. And you can, this word first appeared in Genesis chapter 1, verse 14. And God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. And the word seasons is this moed. It's talking about these appointed times. And in Leviticus 23, it says, speak unto the children of Israel and say unto them concerning the feast of the Lord, which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocations, even these are my feasts. So these feasts in Hebrew is moedim. And so whenever scripture talks about day appointed or appointed times, it's talking about one of these seven feasts. So moedim, according to Strong's Concordance, means appointment. That is a fixed time or season, specifically a festival, conventionally a year by implication, and assembly, technically congregation, a place of meeting, a signal, appointed beforehand, appointed sign and time, a solemn assembly. So that's what it usually means. However, in our text, Proverbs chapter 7, when this adulterous woman tells a young man her husband's coming back on day appointed, it is not using the usual word moedim. It is using this word called kasa, which also means appointed time, but it is not talking about one of the 7 feasts. It's talking about 2 of those 7 feasts. It's more specific. It is about the full moon festival. It means kase, literally means full moon festival. It is time appointed, day appointed, but it is specific to the full moon. What are the full moon festivals out of the 7 festivals? It's the Passover and Tabernacles, which occurs on the 14th and the 15th in the spring and the fall. By the way, the KJV translates this word kaseh as day appointed, but in NIV, it correctly actually translates it as full moon. It says he took his purse filled with money and will not be home till full moon. This is one of the rarest times that I will give credit to NIV. I only read NIV when I can't really understand the KJV because of the difficult grammar and all that. But in this instance, NIV correctly translates Proverbs 7 verse 20 as not appointed time or day appointed, but full moon. So as I said, there are 2 festivals on full moon, Passover and the Tabernacles. And the second Passover of 2022, this year on Hebrew calendar, falls on May 16th or tomorrow, which happens to be a super blood moon. What is a super blood moon? It's actually tonight on 15th evening tonight. And remember, in Hebrew calendar, the day starts in the evening. And what is a super blood moon? So it's a super moon. It's a super moon because it's closest to the earth. The distance between earth and moon is like the closest. So that becomes super big. That's why it's called a super moon. And it's a blood moon because it's a total lunar eclipse. And it would turn literally red like a blood. And so that's why it's called a super blood moon. By the way, this is one of the only like prime time. It's going to occur in prime time, like at 7:30 into like 10:30 tonight. So if you guys are out, you guys will see this. This is the first longest prime time super blood moon in this century, they say. And so on my corrected calendar, it also happens to be, so it's supposed to be the 14th of the 2nd month, right? Because that's when the Passover is, right? But I told you that I have made my own another corrected version because the Hebrew calendar is a little bit off, sometimes a whole month off, and because they're not following the rule in the Bible. And so if you follow the rule of the Bible, then it's not the 14th day, but it is rather the 17th day of the 2nd month, or the 3rd day from the crucifixion or resurrection, or the first fruits, or when the rain began during Noah. If you remember the Noah's flood timeline account in Genesis chapter 6, the rain started on the 17th day of the second month. And also 17th is the day when Jesus resurrected from his crucifixion. And so then that day is very significant. The 17th day is very significant. It is also the day, not just when the rain began, but also when the Noah's ark lifted on that day from the waters. And when the church might also, similarly, this may indeed be the day that the church might be lifted, resurrected, and raptured to become the first fruits of the second coming. So I'm not saying that this is it, that tonight is it, and I'm not saying that it will with 100% certainty, but it just might. I'm just saying that it's very possible, according to what I've been studying, what I've been learning. This is very possible. I'm just giving you some scriptural support of that here. So here's a calendar that I made. It's from my Outlook program, and you can see here. Oh, sorry. You can see that tonight we're right here, May 15th. May 15th, going into the 16th, is the second month. Ayar is a second month in Hebrew calendar. 17th. Okay, and actually the second Passover, according to my corrected calendar, occurred this past Friday, and that's when the countdown began with 3 days and 3 nights, 3 nights and 3 days actually, and that tonight is when Jesus is supposed to be resurrected, and so if you look at also here, last Monday, May 9th. Was the Palm Sunday equivalent when Jesus entered into Jerusalem, if you count the second month as the first month. But remember, we're doing the second month because of the long journey scenario, right? And so then the 10th, that day, Elliot, thank you. So the 10th day is also the day when God told Noah to get ready. He gave Noah the 7-day warning because God told Noah 7 days before it's going to rain. And so on the 10th day of the second month is when Noah started to get everybody into the ark and such. And so this is a very, very ominous period, if you will. So let's talk about the solar and lunar eclipses. There's few passages, I should say, in the Bible about this. By the way, when Jesus was crucified on the Passover, everybody will remember that there was a solar eclipse. It talks about it, that the sun darkened for 3 hours from noon to 3 p.m. when he finally gave up his ghost, it says. So there was total darkness on Earth. So there was solar eclipse on his Passover time. And also, when I looked this up, I learned that there was also a blood moon that evening when he got buried. So on his crucifixion day, there was a solar and lunar eclipse with the blood moon. And so on Joel chapter 2, verse 31, it says a similar thing here. It says, the sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before the great and the terrible day of the Lord come. And in book of Acts, chapter 2:20, the sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before that great and notable day of the Lord come. In Revelation 6:12, and I beheld when he had opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood. And so this eclipses. These are talking about blood moons and solar eclipses. These are somehow associated with the day of the Lord. So I've shown this flood timeline, Noah's flood timeline to you guys in the past, how they relate to his first coming and second coming. And I updated it to this year. And so if you can see right here, incidentally, there was a solar eclipse. There was a solar eclipse on April 30th of this year, about 2 weeks ago. And following that is a blood moon tonight. And so, and then I another thing to note here, right here, I wrote, I shared here, Mark chapter 13. So everybody in the Christian world think that the tribulation is 7 years, according to Daniel's 70th week prophecy. And I agree with that. However, there's a verse in Mark chapter 13 when Jesus says that he's going to shorten it. And he says, and except that the Lord has shortened those days, no flesh should be saved, but for the elect's sake, whom he had chosen, he has shortened the days. So he's going to have to shorten the tribulation, and in order for some people to survive. That's how horrendous it'll be. So I don't know how long that'll be, but according to Noah's flood timeline, I predict it'll be about 300 days and plus 14 days, according to this. But he could still make it 7 years. I don't know. So this is a chart that Brother Ken Potter has made of all the blood moons and solar eclipses from past 7 years and future 7 years. And if you look at these dates, it's really, really remarkable. So May 16th, tomorrow, or tonight's blood moon, is at the very top, at the very center. And if you look at these blood moons that have occurred in the past, so the one immediately before this one was November 18th, 2021. And it was exactly 5.5 months ago. Well, guess what? 5.5 months from now, on November 8th of this year, there's another blood moon, exactly. And so the one before November 18th of this year, or last year, the blood moon before that was May 26, 2021. And that one is 11.5 months ago. And if you fast forward 11.5 forward, there's another blood moon, May 5th of 2023. So there's a perfect symmetry of all these eclipses, the blood moons and the solar eclipses that have happened in the past 7 years or 100 months. And then going forward 100 months, they're all symmetrical. This is not possible statistically. This is not, this is supernatural thing. This is not something that is possible. This cannot happen by chance. God is telling us something. So all the blood moons and the solar eclipses of the past 7 years and the future ones are symmetric to tonight's blood moon. So it's pointing to tonight. Something's going to happen tonight into tomorrow. I don't know what. Could it be the rapture? It might very well be, but it could be something else. I don't know, but I know that is related to the end times. That's for sure. Would there be some sort of escalation of Ukrainian war? I don't know. Would there be a nuclear war? I don't know. Would there be an earthquake? I don't know. I can't tell you, but I know that is something significant to the eschatology or the end times. And so in the past 7 years, if you look at this chart, this is what the story of Joseph is, right? When he interpreted the dream of the Pharaoh, there was a there was 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine. And so, so I believe this May 16th tonight is the time that's going to separate the dispensational period of plenty and the famine that's coming into the rest of the world. And so if you look at this, I told you there are 100 months prior and 100 months forward. So according to the Noah's flood timeline, according to the biblical month, there are 30 days in a month. So if you multiply 30 times 100, 100 months equals 3,000 days. So you have 3,000 days here and 3,000 days going forward, totaling 6,000 days, which is also a symbolism of when Jesus will return at the end of 6,000 years of humanity right here, when he comes down on Mount of Olives. So it begs the question, is this year, 2022, the 6,000th year, according to the prophecy that we have studied in the past, the Bereshith prophecy of Genesis and many other scriptures that point to Jesus coming back at the 6,000th year of human history? Could this be the year? I believe yes and no. Yes for Christians, but not yet for the Jews. For the Jews, I believe it'll be 7 years from now in 2028. And 6,000, as I said, represents joining with Christ before the millennial reign. So the Jews would have to go through the Great Tribulation to complete Daniel's 70th week. Daniel's 70th week was for Israel, not for Christians. So we're going to, I do believe that we'll be raptured before then. So the decree of Artaxerxes is key, one of the key dates that in order to figure this out. So what is the decree of Artaxerxes? There were 3 Persian kings that ended the Babylonian exile. Originally, it was Cyrus and Darius, and then Artaxerxes came later. But Cyrus is the first one to decree the Jews to return to the Holy Land. But what Cyrus did was to begin rebuilding of the temple, and Darius completed it. And if you notice, the prophecy in Daniel chapter 9, verse 25, is not talking about the temple. It's talking about Jerusalem, which Artaxerxes actually completed. So decree of Artaxerxes in 457 BC confirms Daniel's prophecy. And it says, "Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem unto the Messiah the Prince shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. The street shall be built again, and the wall even in troublous times." So it's talking about Jerusalem. It's not talking about the temple. And it says it'll be from the decree, from the commandment of Artaxerxes. We know that it's Artaxerxes because this came true as a result of Artaxerxes' decree in 457. And so if you add 69 weeks, which is 7 weeks plus 62 weeks, 62 weeks in King James language is 62 weeks. It totals 69 weeks. So if you do the math, you add 457 BC plus 483 years, because 69 weeks times 7 years equals 483 years, because we know that Daniel was not talking about 7-day week, but 7-year weeks. And if you add one year to this, because there was no year 0 AD, it started with 1 AD. So you have to add 1 plus 1. So so if you add it up, it becomes 27 AD exactly. And guess what that year is? That's the year that Jesus started his ministry. He was baptized on that year. How do we know that? How can we confirm that 27 AD was the year of Jesus's baptism, year of Jesus's ministry? Is recorded, believe it or not, in the Gospels. So baptism of Christ year can be confirmed by Luke chapter 3, verse 1, where it states, now in the 15th year of the reign of Tiberius Caesar, Pontius Pilate being governor of Judea, and Herod being tetrarch of Galilee, and his brother Philip, tetrarch of Iturea, and of the region of Trachonitis, and Lysanias, the tetrarch of Abilene. A lot of names thrown out here, but the important thing is to focus on the 15th year reign of Tiberius Caesar, because chapter 3 of book of Luke is talking about starting of John the Baptist ministry. So John the Baptist started baptizing people on the 15th year reign of Tiberius Caesar. So if you fast forward 6 months, because Jesus was 6 months behind John the Baptist, right? Because Elijah had to come before the Messiah, and John the Baptist is Elijah. And so we know from the gospel accounts that he was 6 months behind John the Baptist. So about 6 months later, after beginning of John the Baptist's ministry in the 15th year of Tiberius Caesar, that's when Jesus was baptized. So Tiberius Caesar, so how do we know the 15th year? What year is that in terms of our Gregorian calendar? Well, Tiberius Caesar began reigning at 11 AD. There was a coin that was found in his honor, dated October of 11 AD. So we know that he co-reigned with his dad, Augustus, for 2.5 years before Augustus passed away. And by the way, this is not an odd practice in the history of Israel. They even did that, where they reigned together with their dad because their dad was too old, and they've kind of finished it out for them. And so this occurred with Tiberius Caesar, and he reigned at the end of Augustus's reign, 2.5 years before he passed away together. So his official reign began in 14 AD. If you look it up, you will see that I'm having some feedback. Can somebody silence their microphone, please? Sister Liz, I think you have. Okay, I'm gonna mute you, Sister Liz. Okay, there you go. Okay. So if you look up Tiberius Caesar, they say that he began his reign at 14 AD, but that's inaccurate because they're not counting for 2.5 years of co-reign with his dad. So if you minus 2.5 years from 14, it comes out to be 11 AD, just as the coin that they discovered indicates. So the archaeological evidence confirms the 11 AD date. So if you add 11 AD to 15th year of Tiberius Caesar, it comes out to be 26 AD when John the Baptist started his ministry. So some 6 months later, in 27 AD, was when Jesus was baptized, when he began his ministry, lasting 62 weeks before crucifixion, then another 7 weeks of teaching post-resurrection before ascension, completing the 69 weeks prophecy exactly of Daniel. Interestingly, John the Baptist would have also died at the same age as Christ, at 31 years old. And this is also true of spiritual death age of Adam. He was kicked out of Garden of Eden at age 31, some people believe. Are there any other evidence of this 6,000th year being 2022? There is. The year of Jews' return to their homeland in 1948, the Israel's founding year, the current Israel founding year, 1948, also matches Daniel's prophecy. Jesus predicted in the fig tree prophecy that the same generation that returns to the homeland will be the generation that experiences the day of the Lord. He stated in the book of Luke, chapter 21, verse 32, "Verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass away till all be fulfilled." And in book of Psalms 90, verse 10, defines for us how long a generation is. The days of our years are 80 and 10, which is 70. And if by reason of strength they be 80 or 80, yet is their strength labor and sorrow, for it is soon caught up and we fly away. It's very interesting. It says after 80 years, we're going to fly away like a rapture almost. So if you add 1948, the Israel's founding year, plus 80, then it comes out to be 2028 as the year of the second coming of Christ. So if you subtract 7 years of the tribulation, it comes out to be 2021. But wait a minute, but it's 2022 right now. Why is it 2021? That's because in Hebrew calendar, 2021 it would end in 2022. It starts in September there. The civil calendar year starts in September and ends in September. So that's the reason. So it's right now. How about Revelation 12 sign? I've shared about this in the past. Revelation 12 sign. Let's read that, verse 1. "And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars." This unique sign in the heavens occurred on September 22nd of 2017. This only occurred twice in human history, beginning at the creation and about 3.5 years ago. This was a triggering event of the birth pains. So it was the celestial warning of impending tribulation. Interestingly, exactly 1335 days from this date, as prophesied in book of Daniel 12:12, was fulfilled as a super blood moon on May 26, 2021. So if you fast forward 1335 days from this Revelation 12 sign, it comes out to be May 26, 21, which was a super blood moon. So 7 years from this date, again, will be the year 2028. Are there any more biblical proof that 2022 is the beginning of tribulation? Well, many biblical and Hebrew scholars have confirmed that this year is not only a Shemitah year or Sabbath year, but also Jubilee year, this 50th year. So TorahCalendar.com also puts 2022 as the 50th Jubilee cycle of 120 years, or 6,000th year since creation, exactly 6,000th year to the day. So the 17th day of the second month in the year 3979 BC is what they say was the creation date, according to TorahCalendar.com. I don't know how they came up with that, but that's what they're saying. I'm sure they have a lot of scholars working for them, so that's what they're saying. And so, in fact, exactly on tomorrow or beginning of tonight when the super blood moon occurs is the 17th day of the second month on my correct biblical calendar, which also, like I said, is a super blood moon. So here's the TorahCalendar.com where you can see on 3979 BC, on the second month, there was no this. So the second month, 9th day, there was nobody here yet. But on the 17th day of the year 3979 BC was the creation day, day one. So on the 17th day, again, that 17th, why is that important? Because that's the day that Jesus resurrected. The resurrection day was the 17th day of the month. So here's, to summarize what I've been telling you, here's the Moedim, the God's appointed time, the timeline that God has given us in the Bible. The 4,000 year of the Old Testament, and the 2,000 years of church age, and 1,000 year of reign of Christ after his return, a Mount of Olives, and this represents the fall of man, Adam, the rainbow, Noah's Ark, and Jesus being born here, the Bethlehem star. And the Bethlehem star occurred a couple years ago. And so Bethlehem star occurred before Jesus's birth. Well, the first coming. Well, the Bethlehem star already occurred. The second coming is here now. And this red mark represents the great white throne judgment at the end of 1000th year. So I'm going to summarize for you guys what I've been saying. So if you have one reference point, then you can figure out these timelines. So we know that the decree of Artaxerxes in 457 BC fulfilled Daniel's prophecy. And so if you fast forward that, I told you, is 27 AD is when Jesus started his ministry. And he was crucified a year later, not 3 years later. A lot of people think that he was crucified 3.5 years into his ministry, but that's false because of John chapter 6, I believe, verse 4, I think, where it counts a third Passover, him attending a third Passover. But in the original earliest manuscript, that verse is not there. He did not attend a third Passover. So then he attended 2 Passovers, which fits a 1-year ministry, or a little over a year ministry, 62 weeks, just as Daniel's prophecy predicts. It says that Messiah is supposed to be cut off at 62 weeks. So when you say 3.5 years or 3 years of Jesus' ministry, that goes against Daniel's prophecy. So if you go by Daniel's prophecy, he was crucified on the year 28 AD. And so then 2,000 years from there is his second coming, 2028. 7 years minus 7 years becomes 2021, which spills over onto September of 2022. And so then his birthday, because he started his ministry at age 30, becomes 4 BC. So if you, and a lot of people confirm, a lot of rabbis and a lot of people are able to confirm that he was indeed born on 4 BC. We have Herod's coin that confirmed that. And we have many other biblical, astronomical, historical records that confirm it. And so when you go by 1948, Israel's founding year, the years match again. And if you go by 1949, it doesn't quite match, but it's possible. 1949 is the year when Israel started having their first elected government. So some people go by that year, but so if you go by that year, it'll go on to 2023. But it doesn't match his birthday. It doesn't match his baptismal year. So I don't think that's it, but I included there just in case you guys are interested in that. So if you go by Book of Revelation 12 sign, which occurred on September 22nd of 2017, you fast forward 1335 days of Daniel's prophecy in chapter 12. It turns out to be May of 2021. And if you add that, again, it matches the other timelines. I'm not going to go over this. So that's it, guys. Well, this is a Bible reading chart. Uh, if you read 3 chapters a day, you'll read the Bible in a year. I included that just in case we have another year.